In this video, we're going to cover the top 3 altcoins outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum that, in my opinion, are must-haves right now in 2019, both in terms of their fundamentals as well as price and gain potential. Coming up. Hey, it's John Cursi, your personal guide to crypto. And on this channel, we do a lot of crypto tips and strategy videos, as well as cryptocurrency reviews, just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, and you should come to your own conclusions before making any investment-related decisions. And yes, I am invested in these 3 currencies I'm about to talk to you about, because that's kind of the point of this video. So with that out of the way, let's hop right in. All right. So you may be wondering, John, why are you doing a top 3 video instead of a top 5 or a top 10? You know, the average crypto YouTuber has at least 60 coins in their portfolio, right? And they shill at least 10 per video. So, you know, what's going on here? For one, I'm not your typical crypto investor or YouTuber who buys a bunch of shit coins in the hopes that one of them is going to moon next week and kind of pay off the rest of them that fail. And I'm also not a trader, so I don't care as much about the short-term hype and speculation. Instead, I'm what you would consider to be a value investor, meaning I only care about fundamentals like supply and demand and network effects, competitive advantages, things like that. And I only invest capital into a cryptocurrency project after A, I understand how it works, B, how the currency used within it has value, and C, why that value is expected to increase by 50 to 100x over the long term. And by long term, I'm talking 5 to 10 years. And projects like these definitely don't grow on trees. And you know, if you're lucky, maybe you'll find 1 or 2 per year. And personally, after 5 years worth of research into hundreds of cryptocurrency projects, I've only been able to find 3 of these altcoins outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum that tick all the boxes for me in terms of their fundamental value and price and gain potential over the long term. So, my number 1 altcoin pick for 2019 is Bitcoin SV. I'm kidding, let's start over. My number 1 altcoin pick for 2019 is EOS, the brainchild of Dan Larimer, the creator of BitShares and Steemit, and one of the most accomplished figures in the crypto space. And here's why. EOS is a programmable blockchain, which, similar to Ethereum, you can use to launch your own cryptocurrency or build a decentralized application. But there's one major difference between EOS and Ethereum that you have to understand, and that's the way that they handle consensus, aka how blocks actually get added to the chain. To make a long story short, Ethereum uses something called proof of work, soon to be proof of stake, and this makes Ethereum extremely decentralized, which is great, but it does so at the cost of Ethereum being extremely slow and inefficient. EOS, on the other hand, uses something called delegated proof of stake, which is also Dan Larimer's invention. And while you could argue that delegated proof of stake would make EOS slightly less decentralized than Ethereum, it unlocks a whole slew of benefits, such as 300 times more scalability and throughput than Ethereum, and that number is increasing. 0 transaction fees, which is a massive step forward in terms of user experience and enabling decentralized applications to look and feel like their centralized counterparts. And things like on-chain governance, which are all reasons why over the last year since EOS's launch in June of 2018, it's become the most used blockchain out there in terms of transactions per day, which you could verify for yourself on blocktivity.info. So what about price? You know, how do EOS tokens have value? And the way I like to think about the EOS network is like a giant computer. And this computer has a relatively fixed amount of RAM and CPU and bandwidth. And these are all core elements that are needed to run any internet-connected computer. Now, the cool thing here is the amount of EOS tokens that you own corresponds to how much of the computational power, the horsepower behind this computer that you control. So as dApps grow in popularity on EOS, their developers need to buy more and more EOS tokens in order to cover the computational footprint required to run them. And over the long term, this drives up the price of EOS. And the other way I like to think about EOS is like digital real estate. You know, EOS right now is like a giant suburb, but as more dApps move in and open their doors, think of it like a business, you know, and as this business scales up, it needs to buy more real estate to open more offices, and the success of these businesses generally bring in more users, and more users bring in more businesses, and this virtuous cycle between dApps attracting users, which attract more dApps, I think is what is going to cause the property value of this suburb to increase over time, and slowly over time, it's going to resemble more and more of a city. So yeah, we're in the suburb days right now, but in 5 to 10 years from now, the bet that I'm placing on EOS is that this is going to turn into a bustling city, and the small shack that you own in the corner today could turn into a penthouse suite. And not only is there an opportunity to profit on EOS just by holding coins over the long term and letting the network grow in popularity, there's also an opportunity to earn passive income. So as of last week, the EOS network just deployed the REX, or the Resource Exchange, which, long story short, going back to our digital real estate analogy here, it's the equivalent of renting out your property to a developer who needs your computational power on the EOS network in order to run his or her dApp. So just like homeowners will rent out their space to, you know, travelers and earn a passive income that way through something like Airbnb, token holders on the EOS network, in addition to just holding onto their coins and, you know, benefiting from an appreciation over time through capital gains, they can also benefit from passive income by renting out those tokens or the computational power behind those tokens over time. Now, there's about 1 billion EOS tokens out there in total circulation, with 1% annual inflation on top of that. So anyone who's saying EOS is going to go to $1,000 overnight, I don't think they've done the math on this. So a more realistic price target, in my opinion, would be about $100 per EOS token over the next 3 to 4 years. As Dan Larimer and the Block One team continues to innovate, as dApps continue to grow in popularity on the EOS platform, and as Block One continues to exercise its $4 billion war chest toward growing this platform. All right, coming in at number 2 in terms of my top 3 altcoin picks for 2019 is Binance Coin, or BNB. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Binance, it's a cryptocurrency exchange that's only about 2 years old, but has quickly become the top cryptocurrency exchange on the planet, with over 500,000 daily active users and doing well over $1 billion worth of volume every single day. And this astonishing growth is largely in part because these guys know how to innovate, move quickly, and they know how to execute. For starters, they were the first cryptocurrency exchange to issue their own token and to bootstrap their way into the market through an ICO. They were the first to rethink and gamify the entire trading experience. And as of 2 weeks ago, they are now the first exchange to transition their centralized architecture into a decentralized platform through the launch of Binance Chain, their standalone, dedicated, high-performance blockchain. Binance Chain is similar to Ethereum, except there's no dApps or smart contracts. It's designed around the use case of fundraising through an ICO or an IEO, initial exchange offering. And because of that, Binance Chain is kind of like plucking off the ERC20 token standard from Ethereum and throwing away the rest. And the reason why I'm so optimistic about Binance, Binance Chain, and Binance Coin specifically is it all comes down to basic supply and demand. So on the supply side, there's about 190 million BNB coins out there, which is a very low supply. And every quarter, Binance burns 20% of their profits as BNB, which effectively is removing tens of millions of dollars worth of BNB coins from circulation forever. And Binance will continue to do this based on their white paper until the overall supply of BNB reduces from its current level of about 190 million all the way down to just 100 million. So there's 90 million BNB yet to be burned. So we're going to be enjoying this reduction in supply for years to come. And on the demand side, number one, it's clear to me that Decentralized exchanges are the future of crypto-to-crypto trading, and similar to how Binance wrote the blueprint on how to build a successful centralized exchange and, just blew up in popularity overnight, it seems, I think that Binance Chain is going to do a similar thing for decentralized exchanges. And as Binance Chain becomes more and more popular and used, by virtue of Binance Coin being the native token on that platform, I think BNB is going to see a massive increase in usage, utility, and adoption. And number two is it's also clear to me that a lot of cryptocurrency projects are transitioning away from ICOs or initial coin offerings into IEOs or initial exchange offerings. And what that is essentially is like an ICO, except the entire fundraising process is conducted directly on the exchange. And what we've seen over the last year is that IEOs are a much better alignment of the interests of the cryptocurrency project, the exchange provider, and the end user and investor like you and I. And similar to how Ethereum had a crazy ICO boom in 2017, I'm personally expecting a massive IEO boom to happen on Binance Chain in the next few years. And again, because Binance Coin is the native unit of payment and the currency on Binance Chain, I think BNB tokens are really going to be in demand. And thirdly, I have to mention that Binance.com, which is Binance's centralized exchange, was hacked last week for about $40 million worth of Bitcoin, which is definitely not good news for Binance in general. However, this does play well into my thesis that Binance Chain is going to see a massive increase in adoption over the coming years, because the fact of the matter is, this hack would not have succeeded on decentralized architecture. So from a supply and demand perspective, I believe that BNB is primed to do extremely well over the coming years, especially under the guidance of CZ, who's the CEO of Binance and someone who I personally have a lot of respect for. All right, last but not least, in my top 3 altcoin picks for 2019 is 0x. And to help explain 0x, we have to continue on this topic of decentralized exchanges. If you've used one of these DEXs before, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that the biggest issue of using one of these things is a lack of liquidity. Because what happens is, you plug in your hardware wallet, you boot up the exchange, you go to make a trade, but there's nothing to buy and sell because the order books are so thin. Well, what 0x does at its core is it provides a generic set of building blocks or smart contracts that these DEXs can use to get themselves off the ground and to bootstrap massive amounts of liquidity. And the reason they're able to do this is because all DEXs that are built on top of the 0x protocol, they share liquidity with each other. And this concept is known as networked liquidity. And in my opinion, it's a fundamental innovation in the crypto space that is going to push forward the adoption of these decentralized exchanges over the coming years. And liquidity is just one use case. Think about this. Today, if you have an Ethereum token and you wanted to trade it for, let's say, a token on EOS, how would you do that? Well, the answer is you would have to use a centralized middleman, something like Shapeshift, in order to make that trade, because there are multiple chains involved. But in the next 3 to 5 years, according to the 0x roadmap, you would be able to make a trade like that across chains using the 0x protocol. And this is known as cross-chain atomic swaps. So I think over the next few years, a lot of exchanges are going to be adopting 0x for the liquidity benefits. And a lot of the wallet developers are going to be adopting 0x for the benefits of offering a better user experience, of being able to convert in and out of various currencies regardless of what chain they're based on. So in other words, while I'm placing bets on EOS and Ethereum and Binance Chain as independent communities, I am also placing a bet on 0x, that it will be the connective tissue, if it will, that kind of binds them all together and enables developers to build the next generation of decentralized exchanges and cryptocurrency wallets and services. But just like I said with EOS, I'm not expecting 0x to go to $1,000 overnight. It's going to take a lot of time, especially because there's a lot of 0x tokens out there. So right now there's about $1 billion in total supply, and about half of them are pre-mined by the 0x founding team to incentivize the adoption of the 0x protocol. So in my opinion, a more realistic price target for 0x is around the $10 to $15 range over the next 5 years. So there you have it. Those are the top 3 cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum that I am personally investing in right now in 2019, based on their fundamentals as well as price and gain potential. And if you want to add any of these cryptocurrencies to your portfolio, just check the YouTube description down below. All the links and resources you need to get started and get a wallet and to buy these coins will be right down there. And question of the day: what are the top 3 cryptocurrencies that you're most excited about and are investing in right now in 2019 outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one.